Welcome to week 2 of me making my clicker game. I tried to do sound design and kind of failed at it. Tried to do some music work, kind of failed at that. And then I tried implementing some mechanics, and I think I did that okay. But before we get into the video, if you don't know who I am, my name is Helper Wesley. I've made these games, and I make weekly devlogs. I started off just copying the mechanics that I'd made for the lumberjack and applying them to all the other jobs. Specifically the upgrade system. And this was pretty straightforward. It was just a matter of copying the code from one section and pasting it down to another section and changing a couple words. And then I had to go through and make sure that everything worked, so I went through all the different stations and made sure everything was positioned properly, and most things were, but there were some layering issues because I didn't plan ahead. I just kind of threw everything on the scene and hoped it would work, and of course it didn't. And once I had those done, the next villager that needed a bit of attention was the merchant. So I made a buy and a sell button, and when you click on one of these buttons, the other one comes up and that one goes down. And then when you go to click on a resource, you either buy or sell based on which of those buttons is down. And right now it's just a 1-for-1 trade. I think I might go back at some point and change that to like a 2-for-1 or something, just so that people aren't focusing exclusively on one job and then just selling in order to get the resources they need from everything else. I initially put this in wrong though because I've been copying and pasting everything. So it's a simple 0-1 kind of on and off switch variable. And what I did was copy and paste it, so it was looking for a 0 for both buying and selling. And so it just didn't want to work. Because when you clicked on something, it would buy it and then sell it back, so you wouldn't get anything. With coding, it's never a big issue. It's always something stupid. At least that's what I've found. Once I had this working, I made a simple little gold coin and then threw that into the scene with some UI so that you can keep track of how much gold you have. It's got no animations or sound for now, but I can just put that in later. Now that the mechanics are basically working, I decided to jump off and work on some music. I was just looking for something simple, just to kind of play in the background lightly to make it so it's not dead space. I started off using BandLab, which I have created some good music with before, but I don't know what I'm doing. So I really need something that's pared down and simple for me. The more options I have, the more things I can create, but that only helps if you know what you're doing in the first place. So I ran away from BandLab and tried Jumpbox for a little while. And then I couldn't make anything at all good with that, so I ran back to BandLab. And then back to Jumpbox. And then back to BandLab. And then I got so frustrated that I just went to sleep out of it. When I woke up in the morning, I went back and listened to the song that I made the night before, and I kind of liked it. Then I set out to make a daytime song. So I basically want to have a nighttime song and a daytime song to go along with the day-night cycle of the game. And I got a couple nice little tunes going, but whenever I tried to string it out into a full song, it just didn't work. Like the night before, the more that I listened to the song, the more I disliked it, so I eventually gave up on the whole thing and ran off to work on some mechanics again. And then I was determined to go back and make that song. And I was like 20 minutes into it, and I gave up again. Yeah. I ran a poll on Twitter to ask people why they watched devlogs, and the majority of the people came back with them watching devlogs in order to see people's workflow. And I can just think of how useless mine's going to be. Because I'm sorry, I bounce all over the place. But I did eventually decide to just put that on my to-do list and do that later. Then I went to work on some sound design, and I started by putting in some placeholder sounds by just banging my finger on the desk and then changing the pitch. But then I got really annoyed with that because they don't sound right, and my brain just decided that it needs to be right. So I went into the kitchen busted out some knives and wooden things, and started recording. And once I had a bunch of those done, I chopped the whole thing up and put them into the game. I then decided it was time to put in the day-night cycle for my game. And this is just a simple timer that ticks. Every time the timer ticks, it adds 1 to the clock, and then when the clock reaches like a nighttime or a time everybody should be going to sleep, that resets to the time that they all wake up, and it adds 1 to the day. And I'll be honest, this worked the first time, and there were totally no issues with it. Oh boy, there is a reason I don't live stream. So once I had the clock set up, I put an effect layer over the base layer of the game, and then I set it so that its parameters change during the early hours in the morning and then the late hours of the night. So they get darker on either end, and then during the day it's just not there. Then it was finally time to add an objective to the game, which are the daily needs. And these are basically going to scale up over time to make the game more difficult as you go on, and if you don't manage to get the required amount, then you fail, and have to start right from the beginning again. So I took all of 5 seconds and threw this equation together, and it's basically 1 plus the day times itself, plus a portion of your resources. So it's exponentially growing each day, and the better you're doing in the game, the more resources it's going to cost. And I set that to run with a 1-second timer, just to see where it would get to in like 30 days. And then I went to go pee. When I got back, I found that the resource requirements were way too high. And everything was basically the same, and the only thing that would make each number different would be the amount of resources that you have stashed up, and so players would be able to catch on to that really quick. So I introduced a little bit of randomness into the equation, and then I set that to run, and went to go pee again, because soda is it runs through your body. Like it just goes. It touches your lips and then goes out your... Anyhow, that was also not good enough, so I ended up adding randomness to every part of the equation to allow for more fluctuation and to get you lower numbers. And then I played through the game to see how balanced it was, but it kind of kicked my ass. So I literally halved the amount of resources you need per day, and then I moved on because I can come back and balance that later. And when I got to this point, I started to feel a little less confident in my decisions. I hadn't fixed the blurry text, and it wasn't feeling right. So I decided to add a few particle effects, and this one might get me flagged from Google, but I'm not sure. After I put those in and I basically played with the game a little more, I shipped it up into a demo and put it into the Discord and asked for some people's opinions. You know, because I'm not perfect. The more people that can give me solid input, the better the game's going to be. But it was very clear that the game wasn't very good. It wasn't fun to play, there was no music, it felt janky, and the text and resolution was terrible. So I added all that stuff to my to-do list for next week, the last week, where I've got to get the game finished, and closed up my laptop and started recording this video. Basically what I got done this week was a lot of faffing about, and a lot of writing things down in my to-do list. Like, I'm looking at it now, and it's like 3 pages long, of like, just jot note, 1-sentence line things. So we'll see how next week goes. If you enjoyed this video, maybe click on that subscribe button, and if you want to talk to me personally, the link to our Discord is down below. It's called the Game Dev Fireside, and it's a pretty chill place to hang out and talk game dev. And if you decide to click on that link, then I'll see you there.